The Silent Return. For 800,000 years, the galaxy had moved forward without humans. The Galactic Council had erased them from records, declaring them a failed species, a mistake best forgotten. No one spoke of Earth anymore. No one searched for the lost race. Humanity was gone, or so they believed. But then, the silence broke. Strange signals appeared from the edge of the known galaxy, weak at first, then stronger. They weren't natural. They weren't random. Someone, or something, was out there. The Galactic Council reacted quickly. A scout fleet was dispatched, led by Captain Zorvak of the Celari Empire. His mission was simple: investigate, report, and, if necessary, eliminate any potential threat. After all, no new civilizations had been discovered in thousands of years. Whoever was sending those signals was either lost or dangerous. As the fleet approached the unknown system, the tension on the bridge was heavy. The sensors detected a planet where there should have been nothing but empty space, a massive Earth-like world, untouched on any galactic maps. "That's impossible," whispered First Officer Kestil, staring at the holographic projection. "A ghost planet." Captain Zorvak's eyes narrowed. "Prepare landing teams. We need to see this for ourselves." The fleet descended cautiously, scanning the surface. What they found defied logic. Cities of metal and glass stood tall, silent yet perfectly intact. Roads stretched for miles, without a single sign of life. Gigantic towers loomed over the land, their lights flickering faintly as if they had just begun to wake from a deep slumber. "Where is everyone?" a soldier muttered, gripping his weapon. There were no corpses, no ruins, no signs of decay, as if the entire population had simply vanished. The deeper they explored, the more uneasy they became. Machines were running, but no one controlled them. The air was breathable. The water was clean. It was as if the city had been waiting for something to return. Then the alarms blared. "Captain, we have movement. Unknown energy signatures activating across the city." Before anyone could react, the ground beneath them trembled. Buildings that had stood lifeless for eons powered up, their lights shining like 1,000 stars. The air crackled with energy. In the distance, massive doors began to slide open, revealing figures hidden in the shadows. And then a voice, calm, cold, and in a language not heard in 800,000 years. "We were never gone." Captain Zorvak's blood ran cold. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy was not ready. Panic swept through the scout team. The voice had come from everywhere and nowhere. It echoed through their comms, vibrated in the air, and seemed to whisper inside their own minds. Captain Zorvak clenched his fists. "Who said that?" he demanded. Silence. Then the city around them responded. Lights flared, machines whirred to life, and the once dead structures seemed to breathe. The alien soldiers raised their weapons, their instincts screaming danger. "Unknown entities are emerging," reported a technician, his voice trembling. "They're humanoid." Zorvak turned, his heart pounding. Shadows moved beyond the massive doors that had slowly begun to open. The figures were tall, standing upright, their forms obscured by the dim, flickering lights. The scout team activated their helmet scanners, trying to get a clear image. Then they saw them. Humans. Not the fragile, primitive beings from ancient records. These humans stood like titans, clad in sleek armor that pulsed with energy. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, as if filled with power beyond understanding. They moved with the confidence of warriors, but with the patience of predators. The Galactic Council had called humanity extinct. Yet here they were, alive, evolved, and very much aware of their visitors. One of the armored figures stepped forward. His voice was steady, controlled, and sharp like a blade. "You are not welcome here." Zorvak's instincts screamed at him to retreat, but he forced himself to stay firm. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Humans were wiped from existence. You cannot be real. The human tilted his head slightly, as if amused. And yet here we stand. The words sent chills through the team. Kestil swallowed hard. We detected signals. We thought this world was abandoned. The human's expression remained unreadable behind his helmet. It was. He gestured at the city around them. And then we returned. The weight of his words settled on the scout team. The signals had not been a distress call. They had been a warning. Zorvak took a cautious step forward. The Galactic Council will demand answers, he said, carefully choosing his words. They will want to know why a forgotten species, one that should not exist, has suddenly reappeared. For the first time, the human smiled. But it was not a smile of warmth. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted its prey. Then let them come, he said. Behind him, the doors fully opened, revealing an enormous hangar. Inside, rows of sleek, terrifying warships stood ready, their weapons glowing with an eerie blue energy. They were unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen, far beyond even the most advanced fleets in existence. The realization hit Zorvak like a thunderbolt. The humans had not just survived. They had been waiting. And now, the galaxy would learn what it meant to exile humanity. The hangar doors slowly rumbled shut behind them, sealing the scout team inside the heart of the forgotten human world. The air felt thick with an unknown energy, buzzing with an intensity that made their skin crawl. Captain Zorvak could feel his mind racing, trying to process everything that had just unfolded. The humans, those towering armored figures, stood in perfect formation, watching the scout team closely, their eyes glowing faintly under their helmets. It was like they were studying the aliens, not as equals, but as prey. You said we were not welcome, Zorvak said, forcing his voice to steady despite the rising tension. What exactly do you want? The leader of the humans stepped forward. His voice was calm, yet it carried an authority that cut through the silence. We are not here for your approval. His voice was sharp, yet controlled. We are here to remind the galaxy of a forgotten truth. The scout team exchanged uneasy glances. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The meaning behind those words was clear. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy's fate was about to change. The human leader continued. The Galactic Council made a grave mistake when they cast us aside. They thought us weak, primitive, and easily forgotten. But they were wrong. Zorvak clenched his jaw. What are you saying? That the Council's mistake was erasing humanity. The human nodded, his cold gaze unshifting. You exiled us, but you did not know that we were always watching, always waiting. And now we return not as beggars or allies, but as something far worse. Captain Zorvak's pulse quickened. A threat? The human's eyes narrowed. A reckoning. Without warning, the entire hangar erupted into motion. The massive warships that had been standing idle suddenly came to life, their engines humming with power. Zorvak could feel the ground beneath him vibrate as the ships began to rise from their dormant state, their sleek forms taking flight. There were more ships than the scout team had ever seen. Dozens, maybe hundreds, each one more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had in its arsenal. They've been building all this time, Kestil murmured, her voice barely audible. Waiting for us to come, waiting for us to find them. Zorvak's mind spun. The Council had always prided itself on being the galaxy's dominant force. They controlled fleets, planets, entire star systems. But this was something else. Humanity wasn't just a lost race. They were a power that had been waiting in the shadows, growing stronger. And now they were about to unleash their full strength. Why now? Zorvak demanded, his voice laced with suspicion. Why didn't you return sooner? The human leader took a step closer, his gaze never leaving the captain. We waited because we knew that the galaxy had to learn a lesson first. We had to watch as you squabbled, as you fought among yourselves, as you failed over and over. Only when you proved that you were truly broken, truly weak, did we show ourselves. The captain's heart sank. Was this some kind of vengeance? Were the humans now seeking revenge for their exile after so many centuries? Or was this something bigger, something darker? The human leader tilted his head, as if reading Zorvak's thoughts. It's not about revenge, it's about survival. Your council cast us out, believing that our time had passed. But in reality, our time was only just beginning. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Suddenly, an alarm blared loudly, shaking the walls of the hangar. A flashing red light signaled the arrival of an unknown fleet on the outskirts of the system. Zorvak's mind raced as he turned to his team. Prepare the ships. We need to contact the council immediately. But before he could finish the order, the human leader raised his hand. The alarm went silent. The red lights stopped flashing. They're too late, the human said, his tone final. The council will not save you. The scout team stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in power. The realization was sinking in. The council was not just dealing with an ancient race, but a force that had been planning for this moment for millennia. Humanity wasn't here to beg for a seat at the table. They were here to dominate. The human leader's voice rang out one last time, echoing across the hangar. You've made your choice. Now, we will make ours. The galaxy belongs to us now. You will bow before us, or you will be crushed beneath us. With that, the human fleet began to move, their ships launching into the unknown, preparing for war. The scout team stood there, helpless, watching as humanity's return unfolded before their eyes. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson. Never underestimate humanity. Captain Zorvak and his scout team were escorted back to their ship under the cold, unblinking gazes of the human warriors. The weight of what they had just witnessed sat heavily on their shoulders. Humanity was back, not as refugees, not as diplomats, but as a force the galaxy had never seen before. As the scout vessel ascended from the hidden planet, Zorvak turned to his crew. Transmit everything we've seen to the council. No delays. Kestil's fingers trembled as she keyed in the transmission. Captain, the council will never believe this. Zorvak exhaled sharply. They'll have no choice. The moment their ship entered hyperspace, an emergency priority transmission was sent to the Galactic Council's Central Command, the ruling body of the galaxy. It was a place of immense power, where representatives of the most dominant species governed in unity. Inside the Grand Council chamber, Supreme Chancellor Vereen of the Auxiliary Empire received the report. As she skimmed through the data, her face darkened. The chamber, once filled with idle chatter and political debates, fell into silence. One by one, the council members read the report, their expressions shifting from disbelief to horror. This must be a mistake, murmured High Admiral Krovan of the Votari Dominion. Humanity was exiled 800,000 years ago. They were primitives, weak. How could they have built such a force? Councillor Threx of the Surek Alliance slammed his claws against the table. They couldn't have done this alone. Someone must have helped them. His reptilian eyes narrowed. Are we certain it's truly them? The room erupted into arguments. Some believed the report was an elaborate trick. Others suggested it was the work of an unknown civilization using humanity's name. But Chancellor Vereen silenced them with a single word. Enough. The council chamber fell silent. The evidence is undeniable. Humanity has returned, she said grimly. The question is not whether they exist. The question is what they want. She turned to an intelligence officer. How did we fail to detect them all this time? The officer, a pale-skinned Vixari, shifted uncomfortably. We don't know, Chancellor. The system they occupy was previously recorded as uninhabitable. It seems they have developed technology capable of hiding entire planets from our sensors. The council members exchanged worried glances, a civilization that could cloak entire worlds. That alone was a nightmare. Then the worst news came. A second transmission arrived. It was a message from the new human leader. the same armored figure Captain Zorvac had spoken to. The message was short, but it sent chills through every council member. You exiled us. Now we return. The balance of power is about to change. Prepare. The council chamber exploded into chaos. They're declaring war, shouted a Kethari warlord. We must act now, cried another. Chancellor Vereen remained still, her mind calculating the worst possibilities. If humanity truly possessed the fleet Zorvac reported, if they had remained hidden for this long, then the council was in far more danger than anyone realized. Then another report came in, this one from a long-range scout fleet stationed at the outermost reaches of council-controlled space. Massive human warships had been spotted moving toward council territory. Slowly, deliberately. It was not an invasion. It was a warning. The council had only days, perhaps hours, before the full might of humanity made itself known. Chancellor Vereen rose to her feet. Summon the War Council, she commanded. We must prepare for what comes next. The galaxy had exiled humanity long ago. Now humanity was back, and they were coming. The War Council of the Galactic Council was in complete turmoil. Never before had so many species gathered in one place under such dire circumstances. The chamber, usually a place of calculated political discussions, now buzzed with frantic arguments and hushed whispers of fear. Chancellor Vereen stood at the head of the table, her sharp gaze silencing the chaos. She had led the council for nearly a century, overseeing wars, rebellions, and countless political struggles. But this was different. Humanity wasn't a minor uprising or a rogue faction. They were something else entirely. She tapped on the holo interface before her, and a massive projection of the latest intelligence reports filled the air. Fleet movements, energy readings, intercepted communications, all pointed to one conclusion. Humanity was not hiding anymore. Their ships had been spotted slowly moving toward council space. They weren't attacking yet, but their path was clear. They were heading straight for the capital world of the Galactic Council. Are we certain they intend war? Asked High Admiral Croven, his mandibles clicking nervously. Perhaps they merely seek negotiations. Councillor Threx, the reptilian Surek representative, scoffed. Their message was clear. You exiled us. Now we return. The balance of power is about to change. That does not sound like a request for peace. An uneasy silence settled over the room. A sudden chime interrupted the tension. The central holographic display flickered, and a new transmission appeared, one that sent a cold shiver down every spine in the room. The humans were sending a broadcast, not just to the council, to the entire galaxy. A figure materialized in the hologram, standing in the middle of the War Council chamber as though he were physically present. He was clad in sleek black armor, the golden insignia of an unknown human faction glowing on his chest. His face was calm, but his eyes carried an intensity that seemed to peer straight through the council members. Citizens of the Galactic Council, his voice echoed through the chamber. You do not know me, but you know what I am. A deep silence settled in the room. I am human. His words hung in the air like a death sentence. For 800,000 years, you have erased us from history. You have whispered about our name in fear, telling stories of a primitive race that was cast out for its own good. You believed we were gone. You believed we were no longer a threat. His voice hardened. You were wrong. Across the galaxy, the broadcast played on every frequency, every species, every world, every leader in the known universe listened as humanity finally spoke after millennia of silence. You exiled us, the human continued. You stripped us of our place among the stars. But in doing so, you made a mistake so great that it will now change everything. Chancellor Vereen clenched her fists. She had spent decades dealing with power-hungry warlords, greedy politicians, and entire civilizations on the brink of war. But this was something different. This was a statement. The human leaned forward slightly. We watched as you built your empires. We watched as you fought amongst yourselves, believing you were masters of the cosmos, and we prepared." Admiral Croven stiffened. "Prepared for what?" he muttered under his breath. The human in the transmission seemed to hear him. His gaze sharpened. "Prepared for this moment." The holographic display changed, showing a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sleek warships, black as the void, hovered in perfect formation. Their hulls pulsed with strange energy, their weapons unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. Some ships were as large as moons, their surfaces bristling with unknown technology. Others moved with an eerie, silent grace, as if they were ghosts of the past returning for vengeance. And there were thousands of them. A murmur of horror spread through the council chamber. This cannot be real," one counselor whispered. "No species could build a fleet like this." But the transmission continued. "Your galaxy is built on the illusion of power. You believe your fleets make you strong. You believe your council makes you wise. You believe your rules keep you safe." The human's eyes darkened. "You are mistaken." A single warship, one of humanity's dreadnoughts, appeared on screen. Without warning, it fired. The blast was silent in the vacuum of space, but its effect was instant. A council outpost, a heavily fortified military station, was vaporized in a single shot. The council chamber erupted into chaos. "They just destroyed a military base," someone shouted. "They didn't even warn us." They could have wiped out an entire fleet with one shot. The human's voice cut through the panic. "This is not an attack. This is a demonstration." His expression was unreadable, but his next words sent a chill through every counselor in the room. "You exiled us because you feared what we would become. Now you will learn just how right you were." The screen flickered, and the transmission ended. A suffocating silence filled the chamber. For the first time in history, the Galactic Council, the most powerful governing body in the known universe, was powerless. Admiral Croven's voice was barely a whisper. "They are not just another empire. They are something else." Chancellor Vereen took a deep breath. She had spent centuries ruling over the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. She had faced threats, rebellions, and wars that had shaped history. But now, as she stared at the blank holographic display, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. Fear. She turned to her council. "We have only one choice," she said. "We must prepare for war." But deep down, she already knew the truth. Humanity was not coming to negotiate. They were coming to remind the galaxy of its greatest mistake. And this time, there would be no exile. There would only be consequences. The chamber of the Galactic Council, once a place of measured debates and carefully crafted diplomacy, now resembled a battlefield of fear and desperation. The echoes of humanity's broadcast still lingered in the air, as if the very walls had absorbed the weight of their ominous message. Council members who had spent centuries in positions of power, leaders of empires, masters of war, rulers of entire civilizations, now sat in stunned silence, their authority shattered by the return of an enemy they had long dismissed as extinct. Admiral Croven, his usually unshakable demeanor now laced with unease, turned to Chancellor Vereen, his mandibles twitching. "We cannot allow this to go unchallenged," he growled, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. "If we do not act now, humanity will seize control of the galaxy before we can even mount a defense." Councillor Threx, his reptilian eyes fixed on the hologram that had just vanished, hissed in frustration. "Act. Act how, Admiral?" His sharp claws tapped against the polished surface of the council table. "Do you not understand what we just witnessed? They did not send a fleet to invade us. They did not demand surrender. They sent a warning. A single shot wiped out a heavily fortified station, as if it were nothing more than a speck of dust in a storm. And they have thousands of those warships." Across the chamber, a nervous murmur spread as the reality of the situation settled upon them. The Galactic Council had long considered itself the ultimate authority in the universe, dictating laws, controlling trade routes, and enforcing their will with vast fleets. But now, those fleets, the pride of 1,000 empires, suddenly seemed like wooden spears against a thunderstorm. Chancellor Varine remained silent, her piercing golden eyes scanning the room, absorbing every reaction, every flicker of fear that spread across the faces of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. She knew this was not just a military crisis. This was the unraveling of an era. The transmission from humanity had been clear. They had not come to negotiate. They had come to rewrite history. Then, the chamber doors burst open. A communication officer rushed inside, his face pale, his breathing uneven. "Chancellor, more reports. More fleets have been sighted at the Outer Rim. Human warships are appearing all across the borders of Council space." The room fell into chaos. Some shouted for an immediate counterattack. Others argued that any such action would be suicide. Then, the third transmission arrived. The lights dimmed as the central holographic display activated once more, filling the air with a projection of a single immense warship. It was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. A colossus of black metal and pulsing energy, its surface shifting as though the ship itself were alive, absorbing the very light around it. It was not just a warship. It was a declaration, a symbol of power forged in the depths of exile, hidden away for millennia, now returning with an unstoppable vengeance. The voice that followed was the same as before, calm, unwavering, yet filled with an undeniable authority that commanded attention. "You have had time to prepare," the human leader stated, his voice echoing across the chamber. "Now you will witness what humanity has become." The hologram shifted, displaying live footage from the outer rim of Council space. Council fleets, battle-tested, built over thousands of years of conquest, stood in formation, their weapons locked onto the approaching human ships. The admirals in command had clearly decided that they would not wait for humanity to dictate the course of events. They fired first. Thousands of plasma rounds, railgun slugs, and energy torpedoes streaked across the void, closing the distance between them and the advancing human warships. Then, the impossible happened. The Council chamber, once the heart of the galaxy's ruling power, now felt more like a tomb. The silence that followed the failed attack on the human fleet was heavy, suffocating, absolute. Every council member, every military leader, every species present had just witnessed something that shattered the very foundation of their understanding of warfare. Humanity's ships had not dodged the attacks. They had not used shields to block them. The weapons had simply passed through them, vanished, erased from reality before they could ever touch their targets. A technology beyond comprehension, a force beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever encountered. Chancellor Varine, her composure barely holding, turned to the intelligence officer trembling at the edge of the room. "Replay that footage. Now." The holo display flickered as the battle at the outer rim played again, showing the Council's fleets launching a full-scale attack. An attack that should have annihilated any known enemy. Yet in the space where humanity's ships had been, the energy simply dissolved. Admiral Croven's mandibles clicked rapidly as he struggled to form words. They defied the very laws of physics. Counselor Threx, always the skeptic, hissed. "No, this isn't just advanced shielding or stealth technology. This is something else." He leaned closer to the display, his reptilian pupils narrowing. "It's as if their ships exist in another layer of reality. The moment our weapons enter their space, they cease to exist." A cold dread settled in Varine's chest. Humanity had not just built better warships. They had rewritten the rules of existence itself. Then, another transmission appeared. This time, the human leader was not alone. He stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a massive warship. No, a floating fortress, its very presence exuding power. Behind him, shadowed figures sat in silence, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim lighting. A council of their own. "Your attack was expected," the human spoke, his voice calm but laced with something cold, something final. We gave you a chance to prepare. You chose war. He leaned forward, the light from his console illuminating his face, making his expression unmistakable. There was no anger, no hatred, just certainty. You lost the moment we returned. A wave of static crackled across the Council's communication network as multiple distress signals flooded in. The outer rim was falling. One by one, Council-controlled worlds were going dark, not from destruction, but from surrender. Planetary governors, high-ranking military officers, entire species were sending out the same message. We submit to humanity. The Council's fleets, the same forces that had ruled the galaxy unchallenged for hundreds of thousands of years, were being abandoned by their own people. They're not even fighting back anymore, whispered a stunned strategist. The moment they see the human fleet, they surrender. Because deep down, they all understood the truth. This wasn't a war. This was the final chapter of a long-forgotten story. The story of humanity. The species that had been exiled, erased from the records, cast out as if they had never existed. But time had not erased them. It had transformed them. And now, as the last remnants of the Galactic Council watched their empire crumble in mere hours, they understood the full weight of their mistake. They had exiled humanity out of fear, and now that fear had become reality. Chancellor Vereen, gripping the table so tightly her fingers turned pale, turned to her remaining council members. Her voice, once powerful and commanding, was now hollow. We cannot win. Her words rang through the chamber, final and absolute. The war was over before it had even truly begun. What do we do? Croven whispered, his eyes darting between the flickering distress signals on the holoscreen. Vereen exhaled slowly. She had ruled for centuries, had led during times of war, times of peace, times of chaos. But never before had she faced the end of everything. There was only one path left. She stepped forward and, with trembling hands, activated the emergency transmission beacon. A single message was sent across the stars, across every remaining council fleet, every stronghold, every world that still clung to the old ways. A message to humanity, a message of surrender. And as the final days of the Galactic Council unfolded, as the last of its power faded into history, one truth remained. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again.